The new apartment still smelled of fresh paint and unfamiliar mornings. Sunlight slid through the wide windows, touching boxes that hadn't yet found their place. Welcome to my channel. If you're watching this on Facebook, don't forget to follow the page. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to the channel. If you enjoyed the story, let me know in the comments below. You can also share your thoughts from the heart in the comments, so I can create more stories based on what you love. Thank you for your support. It was meant to feel like a beginning. For me, it did. For us, I hoped it would. Ion stood by the balcony, phone in hand, watching the city as if it were something he needed to understand before trusting. He had that habit, thinking deeply, silently, while I filled the quiet with small joys. A kettle whistling. Curtains chosen with care. A promise in my heart that this home would hold us gently. We had moved in with love, not luxury. Every corner carried effort, sacrifice, and the stubborn belief that together was enough. I'll run to the store, I said, tying my scarf. We're out of milk. He smiled, the kind that always slowed my breath. Don't forget bread. I won't. That smile stayed with me in the elevator, on the street, between shelves. Love has a way of lingering like perfume. You don't see it, but it changes how the world feels. When I returned, arms full, my phone rang before I could unlock the door. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Hello, I said. A pause. Then a voice, older, careful, unsettlingly calm. This is the previous owner of your apartment. My fingers tightened around the bags. Yes! I forgot to deactivate a camera. It was hidden. I checked it today. My heart skipped. That's illegal. I know. I'm calling to tell you something else. Another pause. I saw what your husband did while you were gone. The hallway felt narrower. My breath shallow. Come meet me, the voice continued. Alone. The call ended. I stood there longer than I should have. Fear knocked once softly. Doubt followed. But love stood firm, reminding me of the man waiting inside, the life we were building. I went in as if nothing had happened. Ion was in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, hands dusted with flour. You took longer than usual. I got distracted, I said, forcing a smile. He nodded, unconcerned, and turned back to the counter. On it lay a small, imperfect cake. What's that? I asked. He hesitated, then laughed quietly. I wanted to surprise you. New home. New chapter. My chest ached. Not with fear. With fullness. We ate together. Talked about curtains and plants and future mornings. He never sensed the storm sitting behind my eyes. That night, while he slept, I stared at the ceiling and wondered how truth could feel heavier than lies. In the morning, I told him I had errands. I didn't tell him where I was going. The cafe was old, the kind that smelled of burnt coffee and forgotten stories. The man sat alone, hands folded, eyes sharp but tired. You came, he said. Say what you need to say. He leaned forward. Your husband didn't betray you. My pulse slowed. He cleaned the apartment. Spoke to your photo on the shelf. Practiced a recipe and failed twice before getting it right. Then he sat on the floor and cried. The room tilted. He said he was scared of losing you. That love made him braver and weaker at the same time. Silence filled the space between us. Why tell me this? I asked. Because I sold that apartment after losing someone I loved. I thought cameras could keep memories alive. They can't. He stood. I wanted you to know what kind of man you married. I walked home in a daze. When I opened the door, Ion looked up. Everything okay? I crossed the room and held him, tighter than ever before. Yes, I whispered. Everything is exactly where it should be. Love doesn't need watching. It only needs believing. It only needs believing. That thought stayed with me long after the apartment fell quiet again. Morning light returned the next day, softer than before, as if the walls themselves had learned something overnight. Ion moved through the kitchen, unaware that my understanding of him had deepened into something steadier, something unshakable. Love didn't feel loud anymore. It felt rooted. Days passed, and the apartment slowly became ours. Boxes disappeared. Pictures went up. We argued gently over where the sofa should face and laughed when neither of us won. Every shared moment added weight to the truth I had carried back from that cafe. Love is often invisible in its strongest moments. Ion grew more relaxed. He hummed while cooking now. He spoke about plans, small ones, realistic ones, but plans all the same. A shelf for books. A weekend drive. A habit of evening walks. And yet, something inside me remained alert. Not fearful. Aware. One evening, while watering the plant by the window, I noticed a tiny reflection in the corner of the ceiling, just a blink of metal-catching light. My heart slowed, not raced. I fetched a stool, climbed carefully, and found it. A small lens. Cold. Lifeless. Disconnected. I took it down and placed it on the table. When Ion came home, he stopped short. "What's that?" he asked. "The past," I said. I told him everything then. The call. The meeting. The truth. I didn't hide the fear I'd felt or the relief that followed. I watched his face change, not with anger, not with guilt, but with something closer to sadness. "I hated that camera," he said quietly. "I felt watched even when I was alone. That's why I never told you. I didn't want to bring unease into our first days here." I reached for his hand. "You protected the peace. Even when it meant being misunderstood." He looked at me, eyes steady. "I would do it again." That night, we didn't speak much. We didn't need to. Silence, when shared honestly, can feel like a vow. Weeks later, the city tested us. Work pressure. Missed calls. Tired evenings where conversation felt heavier than sleep. Love didn't disappear, it adapted. We learned how to sit beside each other without demanding energy the other didn't have. We learned when to speak and when to simply be present. One night, during a power outage, we sat on the floor with candles between us. Shadows danced on the walls, and the apartment felt smaller, warmer. "Do you ever feel afraid?" I asked. "Every day," Ion replied. "But not of losing you. Of failing to be enough for you." I shook my head. "You already are." He smiled, not confidently, but sincerely. And sincerity, I had learned, was the rarest form of courage. Time moved forward the way it always does, without permission. Seasons changed outside our windows. The city shifted moods. But inside the apartment, love settled into a rhythm. Not dramatic. Not fragile. Steady. One afternoon, a letter arrived. No return address. Inside was a short note. I destroyed the recordings. Some things deserve to live only in memory. Take care of what you have. I folded the paper and placed it in a drawer, not as a reminder of fear, but of clarity. That evening, Ion cooked dinner again. No occasion. No surprise. Just habit turned into devotion. As we ate, I realized something quietly profound. Love doesn't announce itself with grand gestures every day. Most days, it shows up as effort. As patience. As choosing the same person again when nothing is forcing you to. Later, as we stood on the balcony watching the city lights blink awake, he wrapped his arm around me. "Home feels different now," he said. "It's not the walls," I replied. "It's the trust." He nodded. "Then let's protect that." We stood there longer than needed, listening to distant traffic, breathing the same air, grounded in the same moment. No cameras. No watchers. Just two. People, choosing love in its quietest, strongest form. And for the first time since we moved in, the apartment felt complete. It didn't stay complete because it was perfect. It stayed complete because we kept choosing each other. The morning after that quiet realization, the apartment woke before we did. Sunlight stretched across the floor, touching the edges of furniture we had argued over and then forgiven each other for. The air felt settled, like it had finally learned our names. Ion brewed coffee while I stood by the window, watching the city begin its usual rush. Cars moved with purpose. People carried invisible stories. Somewhere below, a street vendor laughed too loudly for the hour. Life didn't pause just because we had found balance, but it felt kinder knowing we faced it together. "You're smiling," he said. "I was thinking," I replied, "about how close we were to misunderstanding everything." He leaned against the counter. "Love survives that?" "Only the real kind," I said. That became the unspoken rule of our home. Say the difficult things before they harden into distance. We didn't always succeed, but we tried. And effort, we learned, mattered more than perfection. Weeks turned into months. The apartment collected memories the way shelves collect dust, quietly, inevitably. We hosted our first dinner with mismatched plates and nervous laughter. We danced in the living room to a song neither of us remembered liking before. We learned each other's silences, which ones meant comfort and which ones meant something needed to be said. Then came the call that tested us in a different way. Ion lost his job. He didn't tell me right away. Not because he didn't trust me, but because he wanted to understand his own fear before sharing it. When he finally did, his voice was steady, but his hands were not. I didn't want to bring uncertainty into this home, he said. I took his face in my hands. This home exists for uncertainty too. The days that followed were not easy. Budgets tightened. Plans shrink. Pride bruised itself against reality. But love did not retreat. If anything, it leaned in closer. I watched him wake early, send resumes, practice interviews in the mirror. I watched him doubt himself in moments he thought I wasn't looking. And every time, I reminded him, not with grand speeches, but with presence. Dinner still happened. Laughter still showed up. Hope, though quieter, remained. One night, while we sat on the floor sorting bills, he looked at me and said, "I'm scared you'll regret choosing this life with me." I didn't answer immediately. I moved closer instead. "I chose you," I said finally. "Not a version of you that never struggles." Something softened in him then. Something that had been holding its breath. Months later, opportunity returned the way it often does, unexpectedly, imperfectly. A job offer came through. Not better than before. Just enough. And enough, we had learned, could be everything. We celebrated not with noise, but with relief. Time continued its quiet work. The city changed seasons. The apartment changed moods. We changed too, slowly, carefully, together. One evening, as rain tapped gently against the windows, Ion stood behind me and rested his chin on my shoulder. "Do you ever think about leaving?" he asked. "Leaving where?" "This city. This apartment." I considered it. "Sometimes. But not leaving us." He smiled. That's all I needed to hear. Later that night, lying beside him, I thought about how love doesn't always feel like fire. Sometimes it feels like shelter. Sometimes it feels like staying. We never spoke of the camera again. The past stayed where it belonged, behind us, quiet and powerless. What mattered was what we built after discovering the truth. Years later, when the apartment walls bore the marks of our living, scratches, memories, warmth, we stood in the same balcony where it had all begun. "Ready for the next chapter?" he asked. I laced my fingers through his. "As long as it's with you." Love didn't need watching. It never did. It only needed two people willing to see each other fully, honestly, and without fear. It only needed two people willing to see each other fully, honestly, and without fear. That understanding didn't arrive all at once. It unfolded slowly, the way real truths do, revealing themselves in ordinary moments rather than dramatic ones. The next morning proved that. No speeches. No promises. Just the sound of Ion brushing his teeth while I made breakfast, both of us moving through the apartment with an ease that hadn't existed before. The home felt lived in now. Not staged. Not careful. Real. We started a new rhythm without naming it. Morning coffee together became non-negotiable. Even when schedules clashed, even when words were scarce, we sat across from each other, letting presence speak first. Love, we learned, doesn't demand attention, it earns it. Ion's new job required longer hours. He came home tired but lighter somehow, as if purpose had returned to his shoulders. I noticed the way he paused at the door each evening, just for a second, like he was leaving the world outside before stepping into us. "How was your day?" I'd ask better now, he'd say, and mean it. Weeks passed quietly. Then one night, the city reminded us that peace is never permanent, it's practiced. A storm hit without warning. Wind rattled windows. Rain slammed against glass with sharp impatience. The power flickered once, twice, then vanished completely. Darkness swallowed the apartment, thick and sudden. I felt Ion's hand find mine immediately. "It's okay," he said. Not rushed. Not loud. Candles came out again, small flames pushing back the dark. The storm outside roared, but inside, something held steady. We sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, listening to thunder roll like distant anger. "Do you remember our first night here?" I asked. He nodded. "I remember being afraid." "Of what?" "Of not being enough for this life. For you." I turned to face him fully. "You don't have to earn your place with me." He looked at me then, really looked, as if seeing that truth for the first time. "And you don't have to protect me from every storm." The thunder cracked again, louder this time. I leaned into him, and we stayed that way until the lights returned and the city calmed down. That night marked something unspoken. A shift from surviving together to growing together. Months later, an opportunity arrived, one that asked us to choose again. Ayan was offered a transfer. A different city. A chance at advancement. The news sat between us like a fragile object, both promising and heavy. "What do you want?" he asked me carefully. I thought about the apartment. The balcony. The life we'd stitched together piece by piece. Then I thought about the man across from me, the one who had cried alone, cooked for love, stayed through uncertainty. "I want us," I said. "Wherever that is." The decision wasn't easy, but it was clear. We packed slowly this time, deliberately. Every item carried memory. Every box felt like proof that what we built was real enough to move. On our last night in the apartment, we sat on the floor, backs against the wall, surrounded by emptiness that didn't feel empty at all. "This place taught me something," Ayan said quietly. "What?" "That love isn't about control. Or watching. Or certainty." He took my hand. "It's about trust." I smiled. "And choosing." The next morning, we locked the door for the final time. I didn't look back. The new city welcomed us without ceremony. New streets. New sounds. New beginnings layered over old strength. We stumbled sometimes. Misunderstood each other sometimes. But we no longer mistook fear for truth. Years passed. Love aged well on us. Softer. Deeper. Less dramatic, more dependable. We learned that passion doesn't fade, it transforms. Into partnership. Into loyalty. Into quiet understanding shared over tired smiles and late dinners. One evening, long after the hidden camera had become nothing more than a distant memory, Ayan stood beside me again on another balcony, in another home. "Do you ever regret answering that call?" he asked. I shook my head. "It taught me who you were." "And who is that?" he asked. "The man who loved me even when no one was watching." He laughed softly, pulling me closer. The city lights blinked below us. Life moved on, unaware of how many choices had led us here. No cameras. No secrets. Just love, chosen again and again. And that was more than enough. No cameras. No secrets. Just love, chosen again and again. That choice became the rhythm of our lives. It wasn't loud, it wasn't flashy, and it didn't need witnesses. Every morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee and the quiet hum of Ayan preparing for the day. Every evening, he returned with stories of small victories and minor failures, and we celebrated them together, the same way we celebrated each other. The city around us moved at its usual frantic pace. People rushed, deadlines loomed, and traffic screamed with impatient horns. But inside our apartment, time had a gentler rhythm. We learned to hold it still for ourselves, creating moments where the world outside could not intrude. One day, while reorganizing the kitchen, I found a forgotten note tucked behind a shelf. A small piece of paper, folded multiple times, with words I didn't expect to read again. "Love is brave even when unseen. Protect it, nurture it, and it will survive." I showed it to Ayan. He smiled softly, eyes reflecting memories we'd already lived. "Seems like someone wanted to remind us of the obvious." I laughed, but inside, I felt a rush of warmth that had nothing to do with nostalgia. It had to do with knowing we had survived the early tests, the fear, the misunderstanding, the uncertainty, and had come out stronger. Weeks turned into months. Our routines became rituals. Sunday mornings were for pancakes, burned slightly more than usual because Ayan insisted it made them taste better. Wednesday evenings were for walks in the park, where we held hands so tightly the world seemed to pause for just us. Even our arguments were gentle, We learned how to disagree without ever hurting, how to listen without planning rebuttals, how to love without demanding perfection. And then came the day that shifted everything again. I received a letter from the old apartment's previous owner. Not a call, not a warning, just a folded envelope left in the mailbox. Inside was a photograph, not of us, not of Ion, but of the apartment itself. The hidden camera, now long gone, had captured an image of the space exactly as we had left it, empty, peaceful, untouched. There was a note. You built something stronger than fear. Guard it. I kept the photograph. I didn't show it to Ion immediately. It wasn't necessary. Its presence alone reminded me of the journey we had survived, the love we had chosen, the bond that no camera could ever capture. Life, however, never stays quiet for long. Ion's job demanded travel, and for the first time since we had moved, we faced nights apart. Airports, waiting rooms, and delayed flights became part of our reality. But the distance didn't weaken us, it strengthened the choice we made daily to return to each other. Video calls became our lifeline. He shared cityscapes, coffee shop corners, and fleeting moments of his day. I shared sunsets, street musicians, and recipes I had perfected in his absence. Every shared story became a bridge, every laugh over the screen a reminder that love does not rely on proximity, only on attention and care. One night, after an unusually long day, I returned home to find the apartment bathed in candlelight. Ion was there, suitcase set aside, arms open in welcome. I missed this, he said softly. I missed you, I replied. We didn't need to speak beyond that. The air itself carried everything we felt. Seasons changed again. Rain turned to sunshine, winter to spring. We found comfort in small discoveries, new favorite coffee shops, secret corners of the city, late-night walks when the world fell asleep. Love had evolved. It was no longer about grand gestures. It was about daily choices, shared smiles, gentle touch, and unwavering trust. And yet, life continued to remind us that love is never static. Challenges came unannounced. Family emergencies, work crises, minor heartbreaks from friends all tested our bond, but never broke it. Each challenge was met together, as a team, as partners, as lovers who had decided long ago that the other's heart was worth guarding fiercely. One evening, while sitting by the balcony, city lights glittering below, Ion looked at me. Do you think anyone else understands what this means? I shook my head. Not like we do. He smiled. Good. Then it stays ours. And it did. Our love was ours to shape, ours to nurture, and ours to protect. Every quiet evening, every shared laugh, every gentle argument reminded us of the choice we had made, again and again, since the very first day in that apartment. We had discovered a truth most people spend a lifetime seeking. Love, when chosen fully and honestly, does not need watching. It does not need validation. It only needs attention, care, and the courage to stay, even when nothing outside promises safety. Years from now, when strangers walked past the apartment, they would see only a home. They would not see the battles fought in silence, the nights spent worrying and forgiving, the tiny acts of bravery hidden in daily life. But that was the beauty of it. Love does not need an audience. It only needs participants willing to be fully present. And so, each night, we returned to each other, not out of habit, not out of obligation, but because we wanted to. Because in the quiet, in the everyday, in the routine, love had become not just a feeling, but a decision, a rhythm, and a home. Our journey, though tested, was far from over. But we faced each new day with one constant, the certainty that, no matter what storms arrived, we would face them together, unafraid, fully committed, and endlessly choosing each other. Our journey, though tested, was far from over. But we faced each new day with one constant, the certainty that, no matter what storms arrived, we would face them together, unafraid, fully committed, and endlessly choosing each other. The years that followed were not dramatic, nor were they always easy, but they were ours. Life, in its quiet way, continued to present challenges, a sick parent, unexpected bills, moments of doubt, but the foundation we had built never wavered. Ion and I had learned that love is not the absence of hardship, it is the choice to stand together despite it. Every morning began with small rituals. Coffee brewed, curtains drawn back to let sunlight in, and the soft murmur of the city outside. These moments, seemingly insignificant, became anchors for us. Each day we were reminded that love exists not only in grand gestures, but in the quiet constancy of shared life. One particular morning, I noticed a single daisy growing in a small crack by our apartment entrance. It had no right to survive there, yet it did, resilient and unassuming. I pointed it out to Ion. "Look at that," I said. He bent down to see, brushing his fingers gently across the delicate petals. "It's thriving where no one expected it to. Kind of like us, isn't it?" I smiled. Exactly. Moments like these, simple yet profound, became our compass. We celebrated victories, promotions, birthdays, anniversaries, but we also honored the ordinary days. Laundry folded together, groceries carried side by side, quiet evenings on the couch talking about dreams we hadn't yet realized. We traveled, too, though never far enough to lose the roots of our home. Each trip became a reminder of what we were building together. A walk along a sunlit beach, hands entwined, a train ride through mountains, a quiet dinner under foreign stars. In every place, no matter how new or unfamiliar, we carried the same home within us, the home of trust, respect, and unshakable devotion. Challenges, however, never truly left. One particularly difficult winter brought with it illness that left Ion bedridden for weeks. I cared for him with patience I didn't know I had, attending to every need, holding him when the fever spiked, whispering reassurances through nights that seemed endless. In return, he smiled through weakness, reminding me that even vulnerability could be courageous. It was during those nights that I fully understood the depth of what we shared. Love is not only joy and warmth, it is endurance, it is sacrifice, it is choosing to remain when nothing outside guarantees comfort. We had witnessed it in each other in small, silent acts that no one else would see or understand, and that was exactly how it was meant to be. Spring arrived with a gentle hand. Windows opened to sunlight and the scent of fresh blooms. Recovery brought laughter back into the apartment, stronger than ever. And with it came clarity. The realization that every storm, every test, every shadow had only deepened our bond. Years passed. Our hair changed. Lines appeared. We both aged, though slowly, gracefully, in the life we had built. Friends came and went, careers shifted, cities evolved. But our home, both within and outside, remained steadfast. We adopted small traditions that symbolized our shared life. Every Saturday morning, pancakes were mandatory, imperfect, and burned in parts, yet always celebrated. Every evening, a walk became non-negotiable, a time to reconnect, to reflect, to simply exist in each other's presence. We laughed often, argued rarely, and forgave effortlessly. On our 10th anniversary in that apartment, Ion surprised me, not with gifts or grand gestures, but with a single framed photograph. It was a candid of us, taken years ago, laughing on the balcony during a rainstorm, the same balcony where our journey had truly deepened. "This," he said softly, "is proof. Proof that love, when chosen every day, survives everything." I held the frame, tears welling without shame. "It's perfect because it's real," I whispered. Our story, in those years, became a tapestry of quiet devotion, patience, and enduring care. Each day was a thread, each trial a knot that held us tighter together. And, through it all, we understood that love is strongest not when it is easy, but when it is tested and chosen anyway. We grew older together. We learned to listen before speaking, to hold before judging, to forgive before resenting. And in every shared silence, every laughter-filled morning, every gentle touch, we celebrated the truth that had guided us from the very first day, that love, fully realized, fully trusted, and fully chosen, is unstoppable. And so, as the sun set over the city one quiet evening, we stood on our balcony, hands entwined, hearts steady, and minds calm. Around us, the world continued to move in chaos, in rush, in unpredictability, but inside the walls of our home, we had found the certainty that few ever do. No cameras, no secrets, no fears, only love, chosen again and again. And in that, we discovered everything that mattered.